Prologue, Heir to the Ashes. In the shadowed halls of Arinder Keep, where tapestries woven from silver and blood once depicted the conquests of the Scarlet Dynasty, a child was born to the sound of screaming ravens. Orianna Arinder entered the world not with a cry, but with a silence so profound it chilled the midwives. Her first breath drew in the scent of iron and myrrh, the incense of a lineage that ruled the bloodied wastes for 1,000 years. Her cradle was carved from the bones of the first kings, her rattles forged from rubies pried from the eyes of fallen gods. But childhood in the Arinder court was no idle. By age 6, Orianna could recite the 9 curses of sovereignty and dissect a political betrayal with the precision of a surgeon. Her father, King Vorin, taught her that mercy was the language of the vanquished. Her mother, Queen Lysara, schooled her in the art of the ruby dagger, a blade said to siphon souls into its crystalline heart. Yet her truest companion was not human. The beast in the crimson sands. On the eve of her 10th year, Orianna wandered into the Scarlet Dunes, a wasteland where the sands burned like embers. There, beneath a blackened moon, she encountered a creature of legend, Karn, a primordial hybrid of wolf and lion, its fur the color of dried blood, eyes smoldering like coals. It had slaughtered a caravan of traders, their bones littering the dunes like broken ivory. Most would have fled. Orianna approached, her small hand outstretched, a raw haunch of desert hair looted from the carnage. The beast lunged, but stopped short, its muzzle inches from her throat. She did not flinch. "You hunger," she whispered, her voice steady as stone. "But you are more than a scavenger. You are king here. As I will be." Karn snarled, yet something in her glacial gaze mirrored its own feral pride. When it bent its head to eat from her palm, the bond was sealed. By dawn, the creature followed her home, a living shadow at her heels. The court called it omen. Orianna called it destiny. The fall of the Scarlet Dynasty. The war with Elian came like a plague. The god of dawn, clad in golden armor, raised Arinder Keep to ash. Orianna, then 16, watched from a hidden crypt as her parents were dismembered on the steps of their own throne. Their blood pooled around the ruby dagger, abandoned in the chaos. She crawled through smoke and ruin, the blade clutched to her chest, Karn dragging her to safety through secret tunnels. In exile, she carved her vengeance into her flesh. With the dagger, she etched black runes into her arms, vows in the old tongue. Each scar a promise: I will rebuild. I will reign. I will make the world bleed. Chapter 1, The Crimson Sovereign Rides. Years later, Metropolis X, a crumbling bastion of steel and desperation, trembled as Orianna arrived. Karn's claws tore furrows into the cobblestones, his growl a rumble that shook tavern signs and sent rats scurrying. Orianna sat regally atop him, her alabaster skin luminous against the city's grime, her wine-dark hair braided with chains of rubies. Her robes, embroidered with blood runes, shimmered like liquid night. Citizens froze, even the beggars knew royalty when it glared down at them. She rode straight to the presidential spire, where Sebastian Valcrest awaited behind a desk cluttered with pleas and threats. Karn's jaws dripped saliva onto polished marble as Orianna dismounted, her dagger tapping against her thigh. "The Highspire district," she declared, no greeting, no preamble. "Give it to me. I will raise my ruby palace there, and your people may yet live." "Refuse," her fingers brushed the dagger's hilt. "And I will take it anyway. But your bones will pave my halls." Valcrest, a man who'd sold his soul piecemeal to warlocks and bankers, recognized a kindred predator. He nodded. Chapter 2, Webs of Onyx and Blood. Orianna's court took shape in the skeletal towers of Highspire. She hosted Syndicate Voss in a chamber hung with tapestries of flayed skin, their leader, Corvin Voss, licking his lips at her offer. "A seat beside my throne. In exchange, your knives in the dark." To the Order of Umbralis, she dangled older temptations. "My bloodline predates your dusty grimoires. Serve me, and I will restore the rights your founders forgot." Even Helena Dry, guardian of the Chronos Key, faced Orianna's calculus. "Your desert folk starve. Give me the key, and I will make their sands bloom." But Helena, wise to the cost of bargains, countered. Your palace is a tomb, princess. Even rubies crack under eternity's weight. Chapter 3, The Phoenix's Shadow. Ilir Valtherine, the phoenix incarnate, became her anathema. They met in the gardens of Eternum, where lilies withered beneath Vierkarn's tread. Your fire is a lie, Orianna hissed, the dagger glowing hungrily. Rebirth is for fools who fear finality. I build empires that endure. Ilir's flames danced in his pupils. Endure? Or fester? Chapter 4, The Palace of 1,000 Souls. Construction began on the Ruby Palace at midnight, under a blood eclipse. Orianna stood atop the ruins of Elion's temple, her dagger plunging into the heart of a bound priest. His screams fueled the ritual, his soul spiraled into the ruby, staining it darker. Deir Karn prowled the perimeter, slaughtering dissenters as masons raised walls from enchanted crimson marble. Each stone pulsed with trapped spirits, their faces frozen in agony beneath the surface. The grand staircase, drenched in sacrificial blood, led to a throne room where Orianna held court. Petitioners knelt on floors inlaid with the bones of her enemies. Deir Karn slept at her feet, his dreams full of slaughter. Chapter 5, The Crimson Queen's Gambit. When the phoenix song shattered the sky, Orianna stood atop her palace, watching Ilir and Helena lead armies through flaming streets. Azrael, the fallen seraph, emerged from smoke, wings tattered, voice honeyed. Join me. Your empire will straddle life and death. Eternal. Unyielding. Deir Karn growled, sensing the serpent beneath the offer. Orianna glanced at Ilir, his blade raised to strike the palace's heart. She turned to Azrael. Rubies do not fade, she said, and clasped his hand. Deir Karn held, a sound of betrayal, or triumph, as the pact sealed. The palace trembled, its ruby spires melting into rivers of molten stone. Ilir's flames engulfed her, but as her body crumbled, the dagger endured, vanishing into shadow. Chapter 6, The Veil of Forgotten Tongues. With her essence tethered to the ruby dagger, Orianna's influence seeped into Metropolis X like a phantom. She manifested through Lyriel, a disgraced scholar whose mind she hollowed and reforged as her avatar. Lyriel's lips dripped honeyed lies at the grand symposium, where the city's linguists gathered to decode ancient texts. Orianna gifted them a forged manuscript, the Canticle of Ash, its glyphs whispering curses that rewrote memories. Soon, historians recalled Orianna as Metropolis X's forgotten founder, her name etched into civic oaths and street names. Deir Karn, now a shadow with molten eyes, stalked dissenters. Those who questioned the narrative vanished, their homes marked by cloth-guard doors. Key detail, the manuscript's ink mixed with Orianna's ashes, binding readers to her will. Chapter 7, The Theater of Hollow Masks. To control the aristocracy, Orianna resurrected the Moonfire Masquerade, a decadent ball abandoned after a massacre. She replaced the musicians with veiled hands, their instruments laced with dream silk spores. As nobles danced, the spores invaded their lungs, rendering them susceptible to suggestion. By midnight, the revelers pledged fealty to a marble statue of Orianna, believing it spoke prophecies. Sebastian Valcrest, his mind fraying from Orianna's earlier poisons, crowned the statue with his presidential circlet. The next day, decrees signed in his trembling hand granted Orianna's followers control of the city's docks and its smuggling routes. Key detail, the statue's eyes were rubies stolen from Elion's temple, pulsing with trapped souls. Chapter 8, The Pact of Silent Iron. The Ironwright Guild, now under Orianna's thumb, forged a chain linking the Ruby Palace's ruins to Metropolis X's ley lines. During a solar eclipse, Orianna's essence surged through the metal, possessing every blacksmith. In unison, they hammered a crown of silent iron, its spikes dripping with alchemical venom. When placed on Lyriel's brow, the crown fused Orianna's spirit to the city's infrastructure, bridges trembled at her anger, and street lamps dimmed at her command. Azrael observed from the shadows, his wings bristling. "You wear mortality like a cheap gown," he sneered. "Let me drape you in eternity." She refused, but stored his offer like a dagger in reserve. Key detail: the crown's venom mutated rats into scarlet sentinels, their eyes gleaming with intelligence as they spied for her. Chapter 9: The Symphony of Shattered Glass. Ilir, sensing Orianna's resurgence, rallied rebels in the Ashen Market. Orianna retaliated by shattering every mirror in Metropolis X, each shard imbued with shrieking spirits. The shards reassembled into a colossal mosaic of her likeness, towering over the city. Its reflection cast illusions. Citizens saw loved ones as traitors, allies as monsters. Paranoia sparked riots, and Ilir's rebels turned on one another. Dir Karn cornered Ilir in the glass labyrinth, but the Phoenix incarnate melted the shards into a fiery shield. "Your empire is a mirage," he spat. Orianna, speaking through the mosaic, laughed. "Mirage or not, they burn for me." Key detail: the mosaic's glue was made from dissolved bones of Arinder's fallen, ensuring their anguish fueled the chaos. Chapter 10: The Coronation of Echoes. In the Crimson Catacombs, Orianna staged her final act. She summoned Metropolis X's leaders, their minds broken by her campaigns, and forced them to kneel before the ruby dagger. As they chanted her name, the dagger split into 7 shards, embedding into the city's monuments. Each pulse of the shards erased a fragment of the past, overwriting history with her glory. Dir Karn, now more spirit than beast, held a dirge as the city's skyline twisted into spires of ruby and shadow. Azrael emerged, offering his hand once more. "Now?" he asked. Orianna, her form flickering between Lyriel and her true self, grasped it, not in submission, but partnership. Together, they ignited the Eclipse Pyre, merging mortal ambition and divine decay. Metropolis X awoke the next day, its people chanting Orianna's name. They remembered no other ruler. They desired none. Key detail: the pyre smoke stained the sun crimson, a permanent reminder of her triumph.